Hello, my friends. Hello, and welcome in to another episode of Guardians Daily, presented by FanArch. I'm your host, Luke Gable. Happy to have you with us. Another Guardians winner. This one ended up actually being a blowout, 10 and 2, just like driving school 10 and 2 with the hands on the wheel, 10 and 2. 10-2 victory for the Guards against the Royals as they win the series 2 out of 3. And this one got off to a bit of a funky start. Obviously, Joey Cantillo on the mound. We'll get to him and his excellent performance today. But the story of the game early, Cole Reagans sat down the first two Guardians hitters easily with some strikeouts. But then Jose Ramirez, hard hitting Jose, hits the ball right off the screws like it was a bullet right at Reagans, hits him on his pitching hand. But Reagan's tough guy, wanted to stay in the game. There was a bit of a delay. His warm up pitches, I couldn't believe they let him go back in. He just threw two to the backstop, wildly out of control. I'm sure David Fry wasn't thrilled to go back into the box against him, considering his injury when he got hit in the face a couple of years ago against the Tigers, or was that last year actually against the Tigers, broken the nose and everything like that. Sure, not want to see a guy who has no idea where the ball's going. But nonetheless, he did come in and he walked Fry on four pitches right away, and they left him in there, and it was a little bit too much. Left him out there too long. Should have been pulled already because Chase DeLauder. Haven't seen the opposite way as much from him. Obviously, had the home run in Seattle going the opposite way. Well, we saw it in Progressive Field for one of the first times as he drove one off the wall. Seemed like one that probably is out of the ballpark on a little bit of a warmer day, but with the weather, hey, who cares? Double off the wall, two Guardians runs score, and that was it for Reagan's out. Right after that, that's a brutal stat line for a guy like that. When you come in and then boom, two bat, you could record two outs, and then you're out of the game completely. So that's going to affect his numbers for a little bit. Hopefully, nothing too bad. I think they said contusion, but just probably swelling and things like that. Not going to be able to go pitch a full baseball game. Probably shouldn't even have let him stay out there at all once we saw him throwing the wild pitches to the backstop, if you ask me. But nonetheless, but the offense did not stop there as they really just poured it on throughout the game consistently. Reese Hoskins then drove in another run, so it ended up being three runs on the books for Reagan's. And Reese Hoskins, we'll get to in a little bit, had a really nice day. I know I kind of gave him a hard time in the last episode talking about some of his struggles at the plate. Wasn't the case today, and really wasn't the case for anyone in that Guardians lineup. But the story of the day in the two hole. He hasn't hit in the two hole as much. That's been DeLauder's spot. But with the lefties on the mound, they've liked to try a little bit of Angel Martinez in that two hole. And man, what a day from him. Four hits and then the put away knockout punch there in the bottom of the eighth. A grand slam hit the off speed pitch, and it was a no doubter to right. And this is the guy that really could juice this Guardians lineup. They can play him all over the field. And if he can settle in, if you want to put Quan in center like it appears they do, if he can settle in as your go to left fielder, he can hit anywhere in the lineup. Obviously, DeLauder against righties is going to be in that two slot. And the thing with Martinez, the knock and comment about him, which has been true for most of his career as he's been on the Guardians, has been he's so much better from the right handed side of the plate. When he's facing the lefties as a switch hitter, the right-handed side of the plate has been the part where Martinez hits the ball really well and has been that's where his production and his numbers have come from. But Cole Reagan's got hurt in the first inning, like we discussed. There's no one there. They ended up going to a lot of righties. He hit left-handed the rest of the game, and they still had the day he had actually. So that's a really good sign from Angel. And if you can see Angel getting those spots where if he is now confident from both sides of the plate, adds a whole nother wrinkle to this lineup. Because so far they've been using him. You saw he was a little frustrated. They noted last night when CJ Kafis came up to hit for him from the left-handed side against the right-handed pitcher. And I think Angel took that a little. I know it's Angel, but Angels just flows. You know what I mean? But Martinez, there you go. See, now you don't have to worry about which one I say. Martinez looks so more comfortable today at the left side of the plate. And that gives this lineup so much flexibility when you'd really, because almost they'd been using him as if he's a right handed hitter who happens to switch hit. They've been using him positionally and trying to make sure he's in the lineup against lefties. So I think that gives this lineup a whole another realm of flexibility if he's going to be able to hit from both sides like he did today. And they were good at bats. Obviously, on the one, he did get thrown out trying to stretch a double into a triple. Probably not the best move, especially when you have a guy named Jose Ramirez hitting after you. But today, it doesn't cost them in a game where they ended up pulling away and turning this into a blowout. They actually ended with Kansas City had a position player on the mound for the last outs they recorded in the game. But when you look at Angel, I think this is a guy who's going to have a big opportunity to step up and be another one of these young pieces as a building block. You know what I mean? Finished really strong down the stretch last year, but still his spot wasn't guaranteed in this lineup. Even in the last episode, we talked about it with the Arias injury and with the return, with his impending return, which now is not going to be nearly as soon as we expected when we saw the hamstring. We'll get into that a little bit later in the episode. We call that a teaser. But Angel's got an opportunity to really solidify himself as one of these young pieces and that they can build around. And left field seems like a really nice spot for him. He's a good athlete. He's not definite like he can play wherever. I think this is a spot where there's not as much pressure. Left field in Cleveland, we've had some obviously we've talked about in the past Quan and Brantley, these gold glove caliber left fielders. He's not that level, but he's definitely better than CJ Kafis. You know what I mean? If you put him and CJ Kafis in left field, and it's not even a close competition. That's not a knock against CJ. Actually, it is a knock against CJ. Just it's definitely a criticism of him if you're comparing them. But that says more about Angel than it does Kafis. So we'll see what we get from this going forward. I think we're going to keep seeing this when we're facing left-handed pitching, especially. Look, Martinez up in the two hole and maybe DeLauder down around five, like they kind of liked him today. And DeLauder, I think, is totally okay with that. I wouldn't think that's anything of a knock against him. Just standard. Hey, we're facing a lefty. We're going to move you down a little bit, but still nice to see got his big hit today off of the lefty in Reagan's before he had to leave. Another lefty I do want to talk about is one who plays for us, and he was on the mound today, and that's Joey Cantillo. He looked fantastic today. I was really pleased with him. I've been pleased with him all year. Opening day, all the theatrics and stuff like that, he handled that like a pro. Looked great against the Cubs, and I wanted to see more of it, and I got more of it today. 8 punch outs for him, 8 Ks as you call them, and he just looks confident out there. That changeup has been such a weapon for him, and he's using that as his best pitch now. And I think that makes things for him so much easier when he's just trusting that changeup to go across the map. Like he can throw that over the plate with for strikes and things of that nature. It's not just a strikeout and a put away pitch. And he just looks comfortable right now. And I think they moved him. I mean, obviously he's up in the rotation a little further than you expected based on the fact they want to split up the two lefties. They didn't want him or Messick going back to back. Like, because Cantillo probably would have been the four if you would think about it with Slade as the three. If that you were asking me at the start of the year, maybe not if you ask the Guardians and you ask Carl Willis. So maybe I'm off on that. But nonetheless, he's settled in so nicely at the front end of this rotation with behind Gavin Williams, and he's gonna be a guy who they really like a lot. Carl Willis has been really hot, sung his praises in all the stuff you can see out there, and they think he's a guy who has his stuff's filthy. He makes hitters look silly, and you can say that about a lot of pitchers on this staff. And that's just a testament to we had the best pitching staff in baseball the last month of the season last year, and they've kind of just picked right up where they left off. And that's what's going to be the recipe for this team. Obviously, today we ended up blowing up and scoring 10 runs, but that's not the kind of offense we have. But I do think this is the kind of pitching staff we have. The team, they've been not been giving up a lot of runs at all. One of the best BRAs, best rotations in baseball to start the season. I think that's going to be what we get. Obviously, there's going to be some bad outings. That's the nature of the sport. But I like a lot of Joey Cantillo's what he's doing out there right now, and I think he's not even your best pitcher, and he's not even the one off to the best start, and we can still have this segment and rave about him when there's other guys like Messick and Gavin who've been even better so far. So that's a credit to everyone and them trying to one up each other and go out there and say who can I want to do better than the guy in front of me did, and I want to do better than the guy who pitched in front of me did. And it turns into this cycle where it's just they're going out there and they're just tossing gems. Really good job. Did not walk a lot of guys. Had the one walk today, and almost I was surprised that vote didn't let him just get through six. He had 5 2/3. He was under 90 pitches. I was surprised they didn't just let him roll and finish things off. But you never want to push a guy too far, especially he's a guy who kind of has done bullpen stuff in the past, and it's early in the year, so it's not like he's a starter who's been stretched out a ton. And you don't want to overextend, especially when the game was still relatively close at that point. But Brogdon came in and got the out, no problem. And then the bullpen was solid today. Nothing to write home about. Obviously, nothing, no runs given up, and there's nothing that we need to talk about there. So that's always a nice sign when there's uneventful stuff in the bullpen. That's what you're looking for. Cade Smith was up and expecting to come in the ninth, but the offense just erupted in the eighth inning with the grand slam and some other offense as well. Juan Brito, 2 big hits today. He looks comfortable at the plate, man. Juan Brito looks comfortable. And that's what you want to see. I mean, Martinez, even after the game, he's been because they were together in Columbus, was singing his praises. Want to give Martinez a shout out as well. Did the post game interview in English. I know we have the translator, and a lot of our guys do that. I always think I really appreciate that as a fan, and it's not necessarily for us when they make the effort and they try and do those things post game with the best of their abilities with their English. I know these guys are all from all over the world learning the language and stuff like that, but I always think that's a cool thing when a guy like Martinez or Jose, when even though they have the translator available to them, they try and give it their best to do an interview in English. So I appreciate that from Martinez. But he was saying after the game, talking about how much they knew Juan Brito could come up and help this team and the potential he has, and he's looked comfortable. And we'll get into him a little bit later when we do the injury update on Arias. I'm sure you guys have seen the news, but we'll get there in a bit. But there's one other guy in the lineup I want to talk about, and it's Reese Hoskins. And I gave him a little bit of a hard time yesterday. I know I already touched on this a little bit in the episode, but he can really be an answer for him. I know the Manzardo struggles have been there. I will say Matt Underwood was talking about Manzardo and his unluckiest stat in baseball with does Baseball Savant give him like a bonus or something for how often he says it? If you can go back and watch the broadcast, he brought up Manzardo being the unluckiest hitter on Baseball Savant no less than half a dozen times. It was a lot. And not saying anything wrong with the stat. I'm sure they do all the right metrics and things of that nature. But there were 19 games in. We're not even 20 games into the season. We're early. We're still less than a month in. I don't know if that's the stat you need to be going crazy with. Not a knock on Manzardo. I like Kyle Manzardo. I felt kind of he was pressing today. You can see him. He had a nice challenge. He had that unlucky challenge yesterday on his punch out. But I think Hoskins is the guy right now at first base who I feel a little bit more comfortable. He's going to figure it out. He plays a better first base in terms of fielding wise. And I think that veteran presence kind of does a nice job around the infield and helps the young guys, especially like you got Brito and Roto, the young guys making throws across the diamond. It's nice to have a veteran there at first. But his bat had been struggling. Obviously, first game of the season had the big 3 hits, and he did not do that much since. He not a lot of hits since then, but broke out today. Really was a nice piece in the middle of this lineup and had some big hits today. 3 doubles, and they were all different kinds of doubles. One down the line, one in the gap, and then another one off the wall. So that's 3 doubles. 1, 2, 3. Reese Hoskins. Like to see it. Need to see more from him. The home runs are gonna come. Same with Manzardo. Those are home run hitting type guys. That's what they're on this team for. Obviously, first base, that kind of comes with the territory. But he looks just finding his comfort. Obviously, it's the new team, but he's a veteran. He's a pro, and you can tell by the way he carries himself. He's not having these big meltdowns after strikeouts. It's just kind of okay. This is part of the process. This is part of getting better, and part of him finding himself as a member of this team. And I think he's going to be a good fit. I know it's not. There's going to be slumps. Like same with Manzardo. I think you can talk almost. They're almost the same player, just at different points of their career, but they kind of end up giving you the same thing at that first base position and in the lineup. So some combo of them, the home runs are gonna come, but let's just see what we can do. And I'm interested to see how Vogt goes with the balance because it can't. I mean, he might just go with, hey, if it's a righty on the mound, it's gonna be Manzardo. If it's a lefty, it's gonna be Hoskins, and there's really not much more to it. But I think there is a lot more nuance to the dynamic between those two and who plays on what days, given who's hot, who's not. And if they're both not, I don't know what we do. Maybe David Fry gets a little more cracks at it. But kudos to Hoskins today. 3 doubles. And it's nice to see. Nice to see him driving the ball all over the ballpark, and especially off that left field wall. Now, a little bit of tough news. Gabby Arias, a guy who I've given a hard time here on here before, also sung his praises because we know what kind of quality he has in terms of bat speed and these things that in these intangibles. But he will be out for an extended period of time, partially torn hamstring. You hate to see that. And just a tough because he had really put together a nice weekend at the plate, seemed to be finding himself with runners in scoring position. And it was kind of a guy you're excited to see. Is this the time he turns it on, or is this the time, or is he going to revert back into what he's been in with the struggles? And now, kind of a bummer, you're not going to get to see that. But on the flip side, you are going to get to see an extended stay from Juan Brito. And then I'm not sure how the lineup and how the roster is going to be configured. If there's any other corresponding moves to this, now that we know it's a long-term injury and this isn't just going to be a 10-day IL stint, I still don't think we're seeing Bazana anytime soon. I think they want to see more from him down in Columbus. Obviously, the Guardians in the past have not been on the forefront of rushing guys up from AAA, especially young top prospects like that. We've seen it with the Lauder. We've seen it with guys like that in the past where they really like to be patient. I don't think Bazana is going to be any different, although I do expect to see him contributing in 2026. I think that's going to happen at some point. Probably not in this Arias window, though, like we were discussing with the 4 to 8 week margin. And yeah, honestly, when I saw it happen, I did not think that severe. But then, when you tore a hamstring and you're a guy in a plane, he's an athlete out there at shortstop, that can be crucial. And then that's just going to be a thing to monitor. Now, this does open up Juan Brito. And I think Brian Rocchio, he's going to have a really hard time giving that shortstop back, that position back. You know what I mean? Arias, he plays shortstop. I think they've alternated with the two of them in the past and who's short and who's second. Arias, excuse me, Rocchio, I think he's just going to stick. I think he's sticking at shortstop. I don't think he's going to give that position back. I think I like what I'm seeing from him at the plate, and he just he's a great shortstop, right? He is so smooth out there, and I think he's just a smart baseball player. He's really done a good job. He's modeled his game after Jose in terms of the little stuff, trying to make every hustle play and be a smart ball player. And he just plays hard out there, and he's just a natural shortstop. You can tell some of the plays he makes, just other guys aren't going to make. So it'll be interesting to see when Arias does come back. Obviously, this will be a topic we can have for, I guess, 4 to 8 weeks, according to the report. So we got 48 weeks to talk about it and see where he ends up on that timeline. Who knows? Could be six. Six would be the middle ground. So who knows where he comes back on that. But what are we going to see from the middle infield guys? I know we're going to see Brito a lot. We're going to see Rocchio, I think, every day at shortstop. And then obviously, I think we'll see a little bit of Daniel Schneemann trying to help those guys out because they're not going to play every game. So he'll probably get some more middle infield reps than he's been getting, maybe a little less in the outfield for Schneemann. Martinez, we talked about, I think he's going to find his home in left, but he's played infield for us in the past. So they got a lot of options with the versatility and these utility guys on the roster. How do they overcome Arias, now a guy who they had a lot of high hopes for this season, being gone? That's going to be one thing we should all be keeping an eye out going forward. And then I think as right now, that covers it. Another series win. Just keep stacking series wins, and that's what the guards are doing. So we'll be back with you tomorrow, and then we got a weekend series in Atlanta. We're going to get into all that good stuff and more on the next episode of Guardians Daily. I'm Luke Gable. I appreciate you tuning in. Nice to have you as always. And as always, go Guardians. Appreciate it, guys.